In the part 4 of our study of carboxylic acids and derivatives, we are going to examine reactions of carboxylic acids and amides. First, we are going to look at reactions of carboxylic acids. One of the most common reactions of carboxylic acids is esterification. That's reaction of a carboxylic acid with an alcohol to give corresponding ester. The best known conditions for esterification are Fischer esterification conditions. So that's called Fischer esterification. In a Fischer esterification, we react carboxylic acid with an excess of alcohol. Typically alcohol is a solvent with an acid catalyst. Acid catalyst is some inorganic acid that could be something like sulfuric or phosphoric acid, or maybe we can even use something like phenylsulfonic acid. Typically, we make a mixture of alcohol and the catalyst, so dissolve one drop of catalyst in an alcohol, and that's our solvent. We add carboxylic acid to it, heat it to boil, and carry out esterification that way. Products are carboxylic acid ester and water. Water is removed usually by distillation, but sometimes there are some other means to remove water, like using various drying agents. So in a reaction, hydroxyl group from carboxylic acid and proton from alcohol combine to give molecule of water that is byproduct that has to be removed. Reaction is an equilibrium reaction, and equilibrium constant is actually 1. So we would get 50-50 starting materials and products if we did not shift equilibrium to the right. To shift equilibrium to the right towards the products, we use excess of alcohol, that means one of the starting materials, and we remove water, one of the products. Those are Fischer esterification conditions, and that's how we usually can shift equilibrium to get very good to excellent yield of the corresponding ester. Another common reaction of carboxylic acids is formation of amides. Carboxylic acids react with amines at room temperature to form ammonium salts. So keep that in mind. Room temperature reaction is simple acid-base reaction where proton is transferred from acid to amine, and to give this ammonium salt shown in red box. Ammonium salt, upon heating, loses water to give molecule of amide. Heating has to be to rather high temperature, 225 degrees Celsius. So we go from compound that has ionic bond, ammonium salt, to compound that has carbon-nitrogen covalent bond, shown here in blue. That's amide. Sometimes we have amino acids, compounds that are amino acids, that contain both amino group and carboxyl group in the same molecule. If they are suitably positioned, that means there is some distance between them. So we have at least beta amino acids, hopefully gamma or delta amino acids. Then upon heating, they will produce lactams. So they undergo intramolecular reaction to produce corresponding lactams. Finally, one other important reaction of carboxylic acids that does not involve carbonyl group is formation of carboxylate salts. Of course, carboxylic acids are acids, so they will react with either bases or basic salts to form corresponding carboxylate salts. So common reaction would be reaction with a strong base, like sodium hydroxide. Typical neutralization reaction, kind of reaction you have encountered in a general chemistry course to give carboxylate salt and, of course, water as a byproduct. Another common method to do it, and maybe even better method, is to use a carbonate. So we can react carboxylic acid with metal carbonate, like in this case cesium carbonate, that produces corresponding carboxylate salt, and it releases carbon dioxide as a gas and water as a byproduct. Now we are going to look at reactions of amides. First, amides readily undergo dehydration reaction with dehydrating agent, something that has high affinity for water, such as phosphorus pentoxide, shown here in red box, with modest heating, and upon dehydration they give corresponding nitriles. So a molecule of water is removed from amide, oxygen from carbonyl group, and 2 hydrogens attached to nitrogen. So obviously only primary amides undergo this reaction, and products are corresponding nitriles. Of course, byproduct is water. So that's a reaction that connects nitriles to carboxylic acids and derivatives. Dehydration of amides gives corresponding nitriles. Another reaction that is important is hydrolysis of amides. Amides are actually readily hydrolyzed to carboxylic acids. That may at first glance appear to be somewhat unusual reaction because amides are more stable than carboxylic acids. So we are preparing less stable compound from more stable. At first glance, that does not appear to be thermodynamically favorable. But actually it is, as you will see in a minute. So first step in the reaction is protonation of the carbonyl group of the amide. Protonation gives, of course, corresponding oxonium ion, and that oxonium ion makes carbonyl group much more reactive. So that carbonyl group can react now with relatively weak nucleophile, such as water. And in a reaction with water, tetrahedral intermediate is formed. So this tetrahedral intermediate that is formed, shown on the right, is another oxonium ion, different from the first one. And that oxonium ion undergoes deprotonation. So another molecule of water deprotonates that oxonium ion to give next tetrahedral intermediate, and acid catalyst is regenerated. So acid catalyst molecule that was used up in the first step is regenerated, but it is needed again. So acid catalyst is needed again. This time it is needed to protonate nitrogen of the amino group. So nitrogen is protonated to give ammonium group, shown on the left, and that ammonium group now is a leaving group. Ammonium group leaves, assisted by electron pair from oxygen. As ammonium group leaves as ammonium cation, carbon-oxygen double bond is reformed, so carbonyl group is reformed, and again oxonium ion is formed. It's just that this oxonium ion is protonated carboxylic acid. Leaving group is molecule of ammonia. Molecule of ammonia deprotonates as relatively strong base, strongest base in this solution. It deprotonates the oxonium ion. So final step is proton exchange, acid-base reaction. So deprotonation of the oxonium ion to give the final products. Final products are molecule of carboxylic acid, so hydrolyzed product, and ammonium cation. As you can see, the entire process is reversible, and all of the steps are actually reversible. What makes this process favorable and makes it actually go all the way to carboxylic acid is formation of ammonium cation. It is ammonium cation that is very stable species. So it's the byproduct that is very stable and that makes the overall process favorable. If process only involved conversion of carboxylic amide to carboxylic acid, then this process would not have been spontaneous because more stable compound would have been converted into less stable. But formation of byproduct, ammonium cation, makes the overall process favorable. This is shown here on the energy diagram. So in acid catalyzed hydrolysis of amides, its formation of ammonium cation that acts as a thermodynamic sink. So on the energy diagram, that's the lowest point, and that's where products accumulate. So we have here one tetrahedral intermediate. That tetrahedral intermediate collapses, so ammonia leaves as a leaving group to form oxonium ion. There is proton transfer reaction from oxonium ion to ammonia to give ammonium cation and carboxylic acid. And you can see that's the lowest point on the energy diagram, or thermodynamic sink. So the most stable compound is shown here in amber square. Hydrolysis of amides also works very well under basic conditions. Reaction is base-induced, so a stoichiometric amount of base is required, which means that unlike acid catalyzed reaction, which is catalytic, base reaction is base-induced. So stoichiometric amount of base is required. Reaction works very well, and we get product in good yield. But we are not quite certain about the mechanism. So first step is generally assumed to proceed as addition of hydroxide to carbonyl carbon. Hydroxide is a strong nucleophile, so this step should proceed without problems. And tetrahedral intermediate is formed. It is not clear what happens next. One possibility is that a carbon-oxygen double bond is reformed. So from alkoxide ion, electron pair flows to reform a carbon-oxygen double bond, in this case pi bond. And with the loss of leaving group, which would be amide group. Note that NH2- is also called amide or NH2. That's inorganic amide as opposed to carboxylic amide CONH2. That's unfortunate quirk of nomenclature that both are called amides. So then the product would be carboxylic acid and amide anion. In the final step in acid-base reaction, amide anion picks up proton from carboxylic acid to give carboxylate anion and ammonia. Carboxylate anion is more stable compared to starting amide, carboxylic amide, and that makes the overall process thermodynamically favorable. So under basic conditions, process is thermodynamically favorable because product is carboxylate anion. If we want to isolate carboxylic acid, we should protonate the reaction mixture. That means add inorganic acid like dilute hydrochloric acid, and that protonates carboxylate anion to organic acid. Problem with this mechanism shown in the blue box is that amide anion, inorganic amide NH2- is not a leaving group. It's actually extremely poor leaving group. So it's not clear how it would leave. In fact, OH that is also available is a better leaving group. So why would amide leave when there is a better leaving group available? So this is shown again, this pathway involving inorganic amide ion as a leaving group. But we have alternative pathway then. According to alternative pathway, second molecule of base, so second molecule of hydroxide now deprotonates this remaining OH group, and now we end up with a dianion. Now this dianion is dialkoxy anion and has only amide as the leaving group. So as carbon-oxygen double bond is reformed, it is only amide that can leave, and then product is carboxylate anion and amide anion, which picks up proton from the solvent to give the final products. Problem with this pathway is second deprotonation, because we have first tetrahedral intermediate that is negatively charged, and now hydroxide is supposed to remove another proton from species that is already negatively charged. That's extremely unfavorable reaction and unlikely to happen. So this first, in each case, each pathway, the first step of the pathway is problematic. So we are not exactly quite clear how this reaction works, but it works very well because the end product in each case is carboxylate anion, very stable species. Amides, or more specifically, a subclass of amides called imides, have been exploited in synthesis of primary amines. That's called Gabriel synthesis of primary amines. Synthesis of primary amines is a bit of a challenge. If we carry out reaction that you learned in the first semester, SN2 reaction of an alkyl halide with ammonia, where ammonia is the nucleophile, the reaction will produce primary amine. Problem is that resulting primary amine is a nucleophile and is likely to react again as a nucleophile with another molecule of alkyl halide to give secondary amine. And then in turn, secondary amine again is a nucleophile, may react again with third molecule of alkyl halide to give tertiary amine, and tertiary amine can react one more time to give quaternary amine. So frequently, if we attempt a simple SN2 reaction of ammonia and an alkyl halide to produce primary amine, we are likely to end up with a mixture where primary amine is contaminated by significant amounts of secondary and tertiary amines and quaternary ammonium salts. So for that reason, we are always looking for new good methods to make primary amines. And one of them is Gabriel synthesis. It utilizes an imide. So carboxylic amide is species that has carbonyl group attached to nitrogen. An imide has two carbonyl groups attached to nitrogen. This specific imide that is used in Gabriel synthesis is imide of phthalic acid, so dicarboxylic acid. So it's called phthal-imide. Phthal-imide is acidic because of the presence of two carbonyl substituents on the nitrogen. NH bond is highly polarized and hydrogen attached to nitrogen is acidic. It can be easily removed by a base. So base such as hydroxide readily deprotonates phthal-imide to give corresponding anion. That anion is strong nucleophile and in SN2 reaction reacts with an alkyl halide to give alkylated phthalimide. Now, since alkylated phthalimide is no longer a nucleophile, electron pair on nitrogen is delocalized to two carbonyl groups, so it's no longer a nucleophile. Reaction stops here. And so there is no problem with polyalkylation, with formation of secondary, tertiary, quaternary compounds. The only thing now we need to do is release amine from this compound from phthalimide. So we carry out acid catalyzed hydrolysis, the same way we would hydrolyze amides, and products are phthalic acid, shown on the left, and protonated amine. So amine is in form of ammonium salt. So what we need to do is add base, such as hydroxide, to deprotonate amine, and then we isolate a primary amine in good yield and high purity. This completes part 4 of our study of carboxylic acids and derivatives. And next, in the final part, we are going to cover reactions of nitriles, preparation of acyl halides, and we are going to do a summary of the chapter.